I do the intro after the music, right?
Yeah, I mean, just who knows? It's
Okay.
casual. No one cares. I guess we're live right now. So,
Uh,
I
Hold on a
think.
second.
Oh yeah,
All right,
you're
everybody.
busy.
Welcome to another Lunch Bites. This is the Website 101 podcast where we have Lunch Bites the first and third Wednesday of every month. Usually Amanda is with us, but she's a little under the weather today. And as a consequence, we were slow to start because we were trying to figure out how the live stream works. That's usually her job.
Amanda's
Anyways,
the brains of the operation around here, so
yes,
we're
yes.
struggling.
Anyhow, we're hoping that she's feeling better, and yeah, it's me and Mike today. Mike, so what's new with you?
Yeah, I mean, summer's coming to an end, and I feel like we'll be getting back to our regular schedule for the podcast soon. Season 8 is coming up, and we got to
Oh
start,
yeah,
actually scheduling some episodes to come out. I don't know when it'll start, sometime in the coming weeks, right?
yeah. So how do you know that summer is coming to an end? For me, it's the CNE is here, which is our annual fair the last 2 weeks of August.
In Toronto, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like it's a weather thing primarily because I'm currently out of town and in a place where it's not hot right up until September. Like it kind of cools down at the end of August, so it's starting to get that way here. It feels like so that's part of it. But also just being aware of the calendar, and it's August twenty
Well, I mean,
first. What are we gonna do?
everybody's aware of the calendar, but
Yep.
it's like environmental cues. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
actually really cool the last few days here in Toronto, cooler than the average summer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's been super humid where I am, and it's aggravating my joints. I think, to be honest with you, I'm getting
Oh,
old.
the perils of getting old.
Yeah. So, anything new in the web front in your world that people might be interested? I have a few things I wanted to bring up, or something I wanted to bring up later, but just wanted to open the
No, no,
floor.
I don't have anything that's interesting really to talk about. Work is picked up, but I don't. Other than that, like life is good. So curious what you have to talk about.
Yeah, well, I recently finished a website that I've been working on for a year, which is nice. Not a year straight, but it took a year since we started for it to finish, and I'm thrilled about that. Um,
Oh,
we're
nice. How big is it?
It's a pretty big. It's a nonprofit, and it's their main website, and it's looking like we may end up. It always happens when the site is up. People kind of go, "Oh yeah, now that I see." I feel like a lot of people kind of go, "Now that I see what is possible," and stuff like that. They start getting ideas for, "Oh, maybe we should do this and that," which I
Oh
hope
yeah,
is what
absolutely.
we do. Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's
that's
really
awesome.
nice. Yeah, yeah.
I'm also finishing up a site actually today. It's taking an old Craft 2 site and rebuilding it from the ground up in Craft 5. So, a little bit of extra efficiencies, and we're using the FeedMe plugin to copy the content over.
Uh huh.
And so I'm just working on some mobile tweaks because there's a little couple of things that are a little off, and then I'm going to send it off to the client for review and to double check that the imports worked as expected.
So you've got the existing site in an old version of Craft and a new site somewhere else in Craft 5, and you're using FeedMe to pull from the old site to the new site.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
FeedMe is so good.
yeah, I copied the Craft 2 site locally, set it up, and then built my XML templates and FTP'd those up to the live site and used them to pull the content. There was some manual copying and pasting because it would take more time to set up a feed
Yeah.
than to copy and paste it. And I need them to triple check it because it's got two Chinese languages and one English. So I just want to make sure, hey, you need to double check these sections because I don't understand anything I copied and pasted. We just need to
Hmm.
make sure that I did it correctly. So that's also one of the things I want them to check on.
Yeah, and I suppose we should clarify a little bit. So Craft, being the CMS that we like to work with, has this first party plugin, I guess it
Yes.
is, FeedMe.
Yeah.
So it's made or managed by the people who make the CMS, but it's a plugin called FeedMe, and it lets you point it to somewhere else, some other website, like an XML feed or something, and pull in entries and map them to things. So like, oh, the old site, it's usually WordPress in my case. These are the blog entries. The title is this. I want that to be this field in Craft. The description is this. I want that to be populating this field in Craft, and so on. And it just like moves everything over, and it's super, super helpful for moving along.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of configuring and a little bit of trial and error, often setting up your feeds. And you can do JSON feeds if you prefer. I just find XML is easier to write for me. It also will import from CSV and at least one other format that I can't recall offhand. So, I mean, if you're using Craft and you need to import from another site or source, if you can get CSV, JSON, or XML, you're definitely good to go.
Yeah. It's great. I've used it a number of times, and it's a lifesaver. You do have to do that sort of negotiation that you mentioned, where it's like, okay, is it easier to just copy and paste these 10 things or whatever it is than build a feed that will do it automatically? Would it take longer to build the feed? You do have to kind of consider that stuff sometimes, eh?
Yeah, and I gotta say, I was a little bit concerned using FeedMe on this site because it's got matrices, and I'm rebuilding in Craft 5, and Craft 5 changed the paradigm for how the matrix blocks work. They're now entries. But it worked flawlessly. So if you have any concerns about Matrix and FeedMe, don't worry. It just works.
Even in Craft 5, it's all set up to
Yep.
do that properly. Nice.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I just want to bring up something that I don't know if we talked about it extensively on this or the podcast, but hosting. I have some issues regarding hosting that I dealt with recently, and I also have some questions for you about how maybe we'll start there. I know that back in the day, there was a time when you would offer hosting as an option to clients through Forge and DigitalOcean. Do you still do that? You're laughing.
I'm phasing it out.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Why is that? Because it's a headache?
Not really a headache. I've got 2 clients that I'm still... I'm sorry, I have to take this. This is about my father. So I'll come back as soon as I can.
Don't forget to mute it. All right. So while Sean's on that call, I'll talk about my experience with Forge DigitalOcean. So that's a sort of a server that you can buy access to. It's not managed really at all. It's like, hey, here's your login and whatever. Do whatever you want. Set up PHP and this and that. And it's really great because it's built really well. And I use it a lot for my staging sites and that kind of thing. And I used to offer hosting on it where it's like, oh, client, you want to pay me to host on Forge? Go for it. But now I've sort of changed my tune about that because hosting has so many areas where it can go south. And if I'm responsible for that as well as the website, I could find myself digging through mountains of like documentation and how do I solve this problem? It's breaking this other site if I do this thing. I don't want the headache anymore. So I don't really offer that kind of hosting myself. And I'm anxious to see what Sean has to say about this because I know he did offer it, but it sounds like maybe he's sort of going on the same path that I am. We'll find out.
Okay.
All good?
Yeah, I'm sorry, listeners. I got my father's been hospitalized. He's never moving back to his home again, and that's why I needed to take care of that. I'm not going to go into details, but yes, normally I turn my phone off when we record the podcast or this, but for the next while, I can't do that. So
that's good, but you can keep doing this call now. You don't have to go.
Yeah. So that was my sister calling, and I asked her, "Is it like urgent or important?" And she said no, and just gave me a quick summary. We're going to talk after. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll. It's only 10 more minutes.
Okay. So remind me what I was talking about. I'm so sorry.
Well, I was just mentioning just now when you were gone that with me, I used to offer hosting through Forge DigitalOcean through my company. Like I'll be the one doing your hosting, whatever. And I've since said, too much headache. If something goes wrong, I don't want to be responsible for hosting, and I just don't do that. So all my hosting now goes through a third-party company that offers hosting, whether it be shared hosting or VPS. I usually try to do a VPS. I'll tell my clients, look, I'll set it up for you if you want, give you access after, like transfer ownership or something. I'm happy to talk to them, liaise with them in, tech language. But if something happens with your hosting and your site goes offline and I can't solve it, not my responsibility. I cannot be held responsible for that. I will just help you solve the problem, but ultimately you're dealing with that company. That's where I'm at. How about you?
Pretty much. Conversation over. No.
Same deal?
Yeah, so I've got 2 clients that I'm still hosting. And part of the reason is that my backup service doesn't really work that well anymore. And I just don't want to deal with finding another backup. So one of them, we're going to be rebuilding the site shortly. It just got approved, so I need to schedule it with them and talk about it. And the other one, I'm going to ask them to migrate and then just pay for it themselves. And I'm using Servd, SERVD. They're a little bit, that's my recommendation. If they don't want to use it, we can look for something else, but they're a little bit more expensive. They lock things down a lot, but I'm really comfortable with the system, and the support is awesome. As long as you get to them when it's business hours in the UK, they're almost always instantaneous because the owner, Matt, is based in the UK. It's got built-in deployment, built-in staging server. Your images all end up on a CDN because they use a CDN. You are required to use a special plugin for assets in Craft, the Servd plugin. And it's a little bit different approach. And I have been sending some messages because I just started this. I got the second site over there. But I'm figuring it out, and I really like them. I think that their service is great.
And they're craft only, right? Craft focused stuff.
They're an craft only host. So if you're working with Expression Engine or WordPress or some other CMS, then you're going to need to look at another host.
Yeah.
Going with Forge, I'm going to continue to use Forge for my company site and my personal projects, just because I'm happy with it. But I also don't. The reason I'm moving away from hosting is I just don't want to be like you. I don't want to be responsible for the server and any headaches.
Yeah. I agree.
And I'm happy to take point on it for the client, but it's going to be billable hours at this now because it's their server, not my server.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like we're kind of on the same page. And Craft Cloud recently came out. Pixel and Tonic's own sort of hosting environment in the cloud thing, right? Did you learn about that at all?
I looked at the announcement and removed myself from interest because they priced me out of it. And this is not any sort of attack on them. Their target audience is obviously large or enterprise level clients. They're not looking at the small and medium clients for that type of hosting, and maybe they will in the future. But it's like, know your target audience. I am not their target market for that particular thing. I think it's great that they're doing it. But it's just not for me or my clients.
Yeah, I agree.
Too expensive. Like it's really, really expensive. But if you're running a company or a website with the revenue to support it, I would 100% look at it.
Yeah, and Brandon said on Craft Entries, the podcast that you were a guest on not long ago, he said recently on an episode, he was a guest, and he said that he sort of acknowledged that it's kind of for higher end. It's if you're doing small, medium-sized sites, you might be better. He implied that you might be better off going with some other host. So I think that's...
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to turn away business, but realistically, why would a small
Yeah.
client be spending? I don't remember what their minimum price was, but it was a lot,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like well over $100 a month for, for a small client. That's not really worth it for hosting.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a quick story that happened with me around hosting just this week. Just today, as a matter of fact, earlier
Oh,
today,
oh,
it still was in progress. So, and this is the issue when you're dealing with a third party host that's managed. I frequently have to reach out to them about various things. And in this case, they reached out to me that and saying that the server that my site is on, first of all, I'd asked, hey, can you upgrade? I only see PHP 8.0. Can we get 8.2 on there? And they said, oh, it turns out your server is a little old. We have to migrate you to a newer server. Is that okay? It'll take 4 hours, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, I said, what's entailed, etc. They did the migration. I thought all was good, but it turns out that there were some A records. So for anyone who doesn't know, an A record lets you tell the server this URL is actually handled somewhere else or whatever. They can redirect stuff. We had a subdomain in the site that was managed by someone else, like a different hosting company. So we had
okay.
a record pointing to their IP address.
Yep.
And for some reason, the host, when they did the migration, instead of saying every A record that has our old IP, update it to the new server IP,
Oh,
they
no.
seem to have updated every A record to the new IP, including the one that was pointing somewhere else and wasn't supposed to change. So it broke. They couldn't access that microsite or whatever.
Well, yeah, clearly, because it's not going to the right
Yeah,
server anymore.
exactly. So I had to reach out to them. And anyway, I got that solved. We figured it out and it's solved. But just today, I reached out about a different client that's also hosted by that same company. I have two clients hosted on the same hosting company. One of them is a VPS, one of them is a shared hosting environment.
Okay.
The VPS is the one that was migrated. I'm reaching out about something with the shared hosting client, and I asked something, and the answer that the agent gave me in the tech support email was something to the effect of, I think the migration may have affected blah blah blah, and gave me some advice of what to do. And I had to point out, no, you're seeing in your computer, you're probably seeing my past emails, but that's about a different client. It's not about the one I'm talking about right now. Like it's
Yeah.
not, there was no server migration on this site. You know what I mean? And it's just like back and forth. And I'm like, this should have been easier. Like, you know,
I'm wondering if the tech support for that is outsourced and they're just following a script like you hear from all the cable companies and stuff like that.
yeah. Yeah. And I feel like with some of these big hosting companies, they kind of reach a tipping point where they get so big and they have so many customers like me that it then becomes difficult for them to properly train all their agents. Because that's the other thing. Half the time I speak to someone in tech support and I kind of feel like I might know a little more than they do about
Yep.
various things because I don't think they're all that well trained sometimes. So there's a little bit of like, no, and I have to give them all this backstory information to get the thing cleared up. And anyway, it's a little frustrating. So you can't really win with hosting, it seems. You can't do it yourself. And when someone else does it, it doesn't work well.
Speaking of hosting, is your host one of those EIG hosting companies?
Oh, I forgot about that thing. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I don't know. I
I
actually
had to
don't.
Google it because I couldn't remember the parent teacher name or the parent company name, so I muted my mic and quickly Googled, bad hosting. And yeah, it's for any viewers or listeners, EIG is a parent company that buys up tons and tons of shared hosting companies and then turns them from a great host into a garbage host.
So is that still happening? They're still doing that to this
I
day?
I don't know. So I just did a search for bad hosting list, and the Reddit is the top result from 2 years ago, and it doesn't say EIG in the summary, but the first non-Reddit one is where, yeah, I don't know. It could be it's hard to figure out without spending some time
Yeah, it
looking at
doesn't.
it.
Let's not do it on the call.
Anyways, I would double check if your host is on that list and be careful
Well,
going forward.
this site that I have been working on for a year, I actually ended up going with a different host that I liked because they list some of their clients on their website, and they have a very nice client list that it's along the lines of the companies that I work with. So I actually went with them.
Excellent.
So far I'm happy with them. So I'm thinking about moving some other clients, but that's such a pain moving from host
It
to
is a
host. Like, that's
huge hassle. Nobody likes to move.
yeah. So I'm not.
It's just as
looking
much
forward
work
to
as
that.
moving a house.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I know how much work that is. By the way, Kevin's in the chat and he says he likes your haircut, Sean. Just to
Oh,
let you know.
yeah. I think the last time Kevin saw me was when I was in London and I still had long hair.
Yeah, you had the curls. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that about the hosting. It's like I don't know, I wish it. I guess the served thing is probably a middle because they do manage. They claim that they'll manage a lot of your craft stuff. You don't really have to mess around, right?
Oh,
So
you
maybe
don't have to
that's
do anything. Like there's no thinking. Like you, it's the only thing that I would change is I would prefer that there was a way that when you could set up automatic deployments to the staging site, but that's not possible as far as I know. And so every time I want to do something on staging, I actually have to go in and click the button and wait a few minutes because their process, it's a atomic deployment. So it takes some time. They build up everything and then they just flip a switch somewhere, all done automatically. So, I mean, it's really, really great.
Yeah, the auto deployments that Forge offers is really awesome. So I can see.
I say I love the auto deployments because anytime I got a staging site or a site under development, I just push to it and it auto deploys. And then when I set up the production site, I make it so that I actually have to log in and push a button because you don't want to accidentally deploy something that's not ready for production.
I wonder if they have, sometimes they have like I forget what it's called, like a URL, a deployment URL you can visit. And when you just visit the page, it triggers the deployment. I wonder if they have that.
No.
Really
So for served, you go in and their procedure is you click a commit in your Git repo, and then you create a bundle.
Okay.
And it creates the bundle. And when you create the bundle, there's a checkbox that you can have auto deploy to this environment. Or you could just create the bundle and then deploy it later as you want. But currently I'm working on a new site with them and I just have it auto deploy when I create the bundle, but I can't have the bundle created automatically.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that could be a bit of annoying for a staging thing, but
Yeah, but it's not a deal breaker at all. Everything else about served I like. So and this live stream is not sponsored by Served, but if they wanted to, we're open.
not yet. But yeah, reach out. Yeah, that's right. That's why I didn't name drop the name of the hosting company I'm having some problems with. I don't think we're gonna.
Yeah, well, I dropped Served because I'm switching to them and I'm very happy with them at this point. I'm not so sure that it would be the right place to badmouth somebody unless they completely just did something horrible. So yeah, I respect that you don't want to name your current
I say,
issues.
The truth is, I've had some degree of problems with a lot of, even the really good hosts. I remember once there was a host where you can have add-on domains. So just like you have your main site and have basically another site on the same server. Well, it was included in the package, and I tried to set it up. Blah blah blah. It wasn't working. Ended up reaching out to tech support. And I said, hey, what am I doing wrong here? And they said, oh, it turns out the add-on domain functionality was turned off on your server, but I just turned it on for you. And I was like, well, what? I just spent like an hour trying to figure this out. It's supposed to be included. Why is it off? So even the really good, that was a good host. So, you can't, it's not going to be perfect. Nothing's.
Well, nothing is perfect. And we're dealing with tech and a lot of different tech stuff interacting, which is just a recipe for unexpected issues. So I think
Absolutely.
it comes down to the quality of support and documentation that each host offers. And support is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Timely, efficient, and polite.
Yep, timely is important. This new host that I'm working with, they don't have. Sometimes you have like a chat button where you can chat in real time with. They
Right.
don't have it. You have to reach out through emails. Fortunately, they seem to reply very, very quickly, so it's almost real time, I guess. But I hope they continue to be
Yeah,
very
but
prompt.
oh, hey, your site's down and
Yeah,
there's no way to find out what because everybody's
yeah,
asleep or the lone guy working the midnight shift has decided to go get a snack and he's away from
yeah.
the
Take a coffee
desk.
break. Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully that we don't encounter that. All right. Should we wrap her up? It's
I think
12:30
this is a
there.
good time to wrap it up. And hey, visitors, thanks for watching. And I'm sure that next time Amanda will be here to join us and feeling better.
Yeah, I hope you feel better soon, Amanda. Everybody subscribe to our podcast website, 101podcast.com is where you can find that, or wherever you get podcasts, because there's going to be a new season coming out any
Soon.
any moment now. So get ready for it.